Hello, everyone. Bringing you your daily inspiration, it's the Christian Science Daily Lift. Today, we have Charlene Ann Miller. She's from Genera, Ohio.
Years ago in school, a boy bullied me by mocking my appearance, trying to make me feel worthless and unloved. But what started out as a gut-wrenching experience was transformed into an opportunity to claim the truth of my spiritual identity by rejecting the lie of feeling separated from God. Every morning before school, I read citations from the Bible and Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, which make up the weekly Christian Science Bible lesson. One morning, this passage from Science and Health stood out. At all times and under all circumstances, overcome evil with good. Know thyself. And God will supply the wisdom and the occasion for a victory over evil. Clad in the panoply of love, human hatred cannot reach you. To me, know thyself meant to understand my true identity as God's spiritual idea, my true value as a beloved child of God. Through spiritual sense, I saw that I was not a bully little person, but a cherished daughter of an all-loving God, divine love. As I pondered that statement further, the fear of being a victim of bullying vanished from my thought. I knew that nothing anyone said or did had any power to hurt me, and I felt at peace. The next time the boy began taunting me, I looked right at him and smiled. And to my surprise, I suddenly saw the true spiritual identity of this boy, and that the love of God was shielding his heart from hate. The bullying stopped. Good overcame evil. I was grateful for that and the lesson that our only identity is spiritual. I was able to practice unselfish love by truly loving my enemy, seeing him as God's child also. This disarmed hate. We all really are, as God, divine love, made us to be. Loved, loving, lovable, valued, worthy.
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019. Hey, Daily Lift fans, thanks for tuning in. Sharing his inspiration with us today, we have Christian Science practitioner and teacher John Tyler from Washington, D.C. His lift is also available in Italian, French, and German.
The story goes, a businessman and his companion always bought their newspaper at a certain newsstand. This morning, a different vendor insultingly threw the businessman his paper. The businessman responded with his usual cheerful, "Thanks. God be with you." His companion, surprised, asked him how he could stay so cheerful. The businessman answered, "I'm certainly not going to let him tell me who I am." I try to start the day by knowing who I am. Ebulliently, I step onto the sidewalk of life, and there I meet the stolid, I'm busy with my own problem, don't bother me, or even look me in the eye mentality. But when I know who I am, bubbling over with the vitality of divine life, blessing each individual with a "Hail, thou child of God," then I can not only continue to know who I am, but see others as radiant reflections of God's beauty. I like to think Jesus is my mentor in this way of seeing. Mary Baker Eddy describes Jesus as healing by beholding from a spiritual perspective the godlike man, as she says, who appeared to him where sinning mortal man appears to mortals. Once, my colleague and I were team teaching an introductory course in political science. In a joint morning lecture, he vilified one of my favorite theories, but I refused the bait. Not losing sight of his spiritual beauty, I referred the class to the value of open-minded mental explorations. To my surprise, he concluded the lecture agreeing that perspectives can vary, and we shouldn't denigrate any theory out of hand. There are so many expressions of God to greet on this sidewalk of daily life. They come in so many shapes and colors, and every one is created by God. We can, each one of us, behold, from a spiritual perspective, their true spiritual shape and color.
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019.
Hi, friends. This is the Christian Science Daily Lift podcast. Welcome. Today we'll hear from Karen Neff from Mystic, Connecticut.
I really wanted to think more deeply about God, but I just didn't feel I had the time to do it. Shortly after this, I began waking in the night and couldn't get back to sleep. I didn't see this as a problem because I had been praying to God to reveal the deep things of His creation to me. There was no agenda, just a desire to know God better, and I began to view this wakefulness as my communion time with God. I was finding that in the middle of the night, all the mental chatter and clamor of the day was mute, and I'd lay quietly in the dark, just listening to God, His messages and leadings, sometimes for several hours. It became easier and easier to hear God speaking to me as He revealed the depth and power of spirit and the love He felt for His creation, and these silenced any fears I was holding on to. At first, I was tempted to write down these thoughts as they came to me, but I resisted, knowing that what the Father gave me was mine forever to hold close. Eventually, I'd fall back asleep, but I never felt tired in the morning. Instead, I felt refreshed and energized. Sometimes a divine message comes in a flash of light. At other times, it comes in the still of the night as a deep, quenching drink of water. All God requires is a willing heart and a willingness to listen. So if you'd like to think more deeply about God and His creation, you might start by asking God this question: what do you want me to know about you right now? Then wait for Him to make room in your heart for a place and a time to tell you.
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019.
Hi, everyone. Bringing you your daily inspiration. It's the Daily Lift Podcast. Today we'll hear from Tian Langlois. She's from Royal Oak, Michigan.
My grandfather loved music. And when I was little, he'd let me step up on his feet and we'd dance round and round with me swaying and holding on tightly with delight. There was no effort, and I felt so close to him as we moved around the room to his rhythm. Well, recently I came upon a passage in Psalms that said, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way." It immediately took me back to how I felt when I danced on my grandpa's feet. I was not actually doing the dancing. He was. I realized that this is what we do with our Father, Mother, God. We are in his flow and rhythm when we follow his guidance and let divine mind move us. And it delights us because it's our true nature to follow that lead. It says later in that same psalm that the law of his God is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. And this fits in too. I see that my stance and the stance of each one of us is sure and certain because it is God's love and law on which we all live and move. We can trust that we hear God speaking to us in just the way we need to hear, as he guides us and takes care of all the details along the way. And if we seem to fall out of step, our Father, Mother guides us right back on track. I love this sweet dance with God as he keeps us in sync every day with the harmony and joy that his Spirit's leading. And you know what else? God needs us to dance his dance in each of our individual, original, and creative ways.
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Christian Science Daily Lift. Up today is Norm Blankman, a Christian Science practitioner from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
As the story goes, a self-centered man is bragging to a friend, going on and on about all his accomplishments. Finally, after several minutes, he takes a breath and says to his friend, "Well, enough about me. What about you? What do you think of me?" Now then, don't we often start our prayers to God by going on and on about our personal situation, the problems we're facing with health, finances, relationships? Well, instead, maybe we should take a breath and first ask, "What about you, God? And what do you think about me?" Those questions can be a solid basis for effective prayer. First, what about you, God? Show me your true nature. Help me understand your supremacy, your presence, power, and goodness. The next question, what do you think of me, is a logical follow-up. God, what do you know about me as your beloved child, your flawless creation? Remind me of my inseparable relationship to you. Well, those 2 points of prayer, it seems to me, illustrate the way Jesus healed people. no matter whom he met in distress. There were no lengthy discussions about causes or symptoms, barely even an acknowledgement by Jesus of any need at all. On the contrary, his unwavering realization of God's goodness and the goodness of his creation brought about inspired healings. Mary Baker Eddy, the discoverer of Christian Science, refers to this in her miscellaneous writings. It was the consummate naturalness of truth in the mind of Jesus that made his healing easy and instantaneous. We can, in the same way, by asking God what he knows about us, be reminded of the consummate naturalness of truth that brings healing. Sometimes it may be instantaneous, other times it may take persistence. But knowing the truth of God's all-good creation is an effective prayer for all of us.
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Christian Science Daily Lift, a quick yet inspirational podcast. Today we'll hear from Susan Tisch. She's a Christian Science practitioner from Northville, Michigan.
So I hung up on him. Really. And it was my husband. We both had international business trips scheduled for the same week that couldn't be changed. Both of us expected the other to yield and give up their plans to care for our adorable 1-year-old son. Honestly, neither of us were approaching the situation in a very loving way. Leaving work that evening, I knew we needed a solution. So I turned to God and prayed, knowing that there had to be a divine answer from Infinite Mind that would bless everyone involved. And the thought came to just love. But then I stubbornly thought, well, I can't do that. But on the heels of that, then, came something more insistent. Love is right here. I realized that divine love, which is another name for God, is everywhere and all-powerful. I felt suddenly encompassed by that love in this moment. And this infinite love included my husband. I felt God's love for him as God's complete spiritual idea, a good and kind man of integrity. And I knew that about him too. Mary Baker Eddy wrote in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, God is love. More than this we cannot ask, higher we cannot look, farther we cannot go. I stopped looking for a solution and just knew that love was the only needed answer. We didn't even talk about the argument at home that night, but had a happy evening playing with our son. And the next morning, I got a phone message that my all-important meeting in Germany had been canceled and would be rescheduled. Without any need for negotiation, yielding to love had avoided human conflict, encouraged compassion, and brought about the perfect solution. Is there anything love can't do?
This podcast is produced by the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Copyright 2019.